Welcome back to everybody. This is the Kirby Create Podcast. It is a new podcast that I've been doing. I took what was Feeling Dangerous, which admittedly was 95 or more percent just taking the audio from live streams and podcasts or whatever I did for Prospect. And I was like, there's not much incentive for people to go check that out.
Yeah.
Because they're already getting it in one place. And so I basically created like what I call Dallas Prospect Live, which is that. So that does still exist. So if someone theoretically did miss a stream and wanted to check it out, they could do that. And then I repackaged Feeling Dangerous just into the Kirby Create Podcast, because while it will go into sports and all of that, and it's always open to venture into that territory, it's not explicitly sports in that regard. So I try to focus more on interviews of interest and things like that. Like the last guest I had, James Yates, Big Game James, we actually talked about mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it goes into whatever territory that was something he wanted to explore. And so we talked a little bit back and forth about that and our experiences with it.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's more to life than sports. So
yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't figure that like your entire
every
life,
minute, every day,
exactly, would be sports. Although it feels like it sometimes, just watching your podcast and and talking to you. But but as your friend, I do know that you have many interests, and that's cool. It's refreshing.
Yeah. So today we have Mario Cadena, lead singer of Dark Avenue, a Dallas groove metal band. Would you say? Like what would you, I guess, at its most basic label give it for its genre?
So, man, we've been labeled 20 different things.
Yeah.
From metal to alternative to rock to, like grunge, post-grunge. Mm-hmm. I mean, you name it. So, I mean, the way that we like to I guess, talk about it or portray it, it's more like it's just rock.
Yeah.
But to the public, it's more alternative metal.
Right.
Yeah. So
fair enough. So yeah, it's been a long time that you guys have been performing in and around Dallas and all that. I know obviously your career stems back previous to back when you lived in Mexico. And so I guess tell us a little bit about that for those not as familiar with your work, even though I plug it every opportunity I can.
I appreciate it. So originally, I started singing when I was 12 years old in Mexico City. And it's just been a progression. I mean, I started doing weddings with my sister's band, and then we started our. I had a couple of projects like original bands with like just neighborhood kids, and that they had the same type of interest, like skateboarding, and then suddenly turned like oh, well, let's do a punk band, and then auditioned for this band in Acapulco, and ended up getting the job. And I mean, 5 years later, we tour all over the country, through the hard rock. And when I moved here about 22 years ago, I started with a band called Pistol Weapon Ike, and we were together for about 10 years. Off and on, we probably like 12. Mm-hmm. And Dark Avenue started as a side project about 5 years ago for me. And, it was just something that I wanted to explore. Just my guitar player, Barry, sent me a demo, and he was like, you just want to come jam and just check it out. And, like first song, I was hooked. And it just kind of, evolved from there. We recorded a song, and a good friend of ours that was helping out producing South by Southwest or during South by Southwest week down in Austin heard the one song demo. It wasn't even two songs. Okay. And she immediately was hooked, and she called and she was like, "Hey, I have a show. Can you guys do it?" And we were like, "We got the one song. We don't even have like two songs or like 10 minutes of material." Yeah. So. So we just kind of rushed into it. I mean, we put our heads together. We wrote a few songs I didn't even have lyrics for, and we took the show in 2 weeks, and we had about 30 minutes of material. And we got a really good response. I mean, we had a few friends that were down from Dallas to Austin, and and before we knew it, we had a little crowd, and it was really cool. It was kind of like we're just doing this for fun, and that feeling never went away. That was I guess that was the reason why it grew into what it is now. Mm-hmm. That just that feeling of just jamming and having fun with your friends never really went away. Yeah. So for me, that was something that I was looking for, and not to say that I didn't have that with Pistol Whipping Ike, but after being with a band for so many years, your creative process. I'm not saying that it wasn't good, but it just gets redundant.
Right.
And
need something to keep it a little fresh.
Exactly. And you're playing the same songs that you were playing 10 years ago just because when you do shows, that's what the fans expect. They expect you to play the songs that kind of got you there. Mm-hmm. And, and we got to the point, or at least for me, I got to the point where I just wanted to try something different and explore different avenues of my voice and how to manipulate it and, just be more, I guess, just free with what I wanted to do with Pistol Whipping Ike. Everything, we had a sound, we had a predetermined, way of that the band was supposed to sound and look, and and with Arc Avenue, it was just kind of like whatever we felt like playing or whatever we feel like playing, whatever we like and we love to listen to, that's what we're gonna play, and our fans like that, and we're not cookie cutter, and I mean we're all older, and I mean we've been doing this for a long time. I mean we have members in the band that have been doing this for 30 years. I mean I've been doing it for nearly 30 years.
Wow. Yeah. So well, you guys have what, 3 albums total that you've released? I know the first one I think was an EP. It was an EP. It was just a few songs. Actually, those were the songs that we played in our first show. Nice. And like I said, we just recorded in our own studio, and we just wanted to have fun with it and see where it went. And like I said, it took off. Then came Illusions, our second album, and this was a little more full length. We had 10 songs, around 10, 11 songs. And that's what really propelled, the band into what it is now. And then we started working on Reality, which is what is out now. Yeah, the newest album that came out, like 6 months ago? Yeah, something in that neighborhood. It's been a 2-year process, but it was released about 6 months ago. And there were some delays and stuff like that, and the pandemic kind of threw a wrench in everything as well. So but no, I think the first time when I met you and first heard you guys play was at Gas Monkey Bar and Grill. Correct. You guys were opening for Red Sun Rising. Yes. Yeah, so that was the first time I met you there, and I remember you guys were just like really cool and down to earth and everything. Like after the fact, me and my friends I was there with, Jacob and Brennan, like we had like a conversation for like 20 something minutes with you guys, and I remember we were all kind of thinking like, I'm surprised they like talk to us that long. Usually, if someone from a band talks to you, it seems like it's a few minutes, and then they're kind of like on to the next thing. We're like, all right, where's the hot girls at? I'd rather talk with them. But it was cool. I remember I think Jacob bought your EP that you guys were selling there as well, and I looked more into your stuff, and then it was probably several months after that I first reached out to you guys after the fact, and it was I think you directly talking about setting up what eventually was the interview that we did for Dallas Prospect, which I only now realize I'm wearing my own shirt. But it's like a shameless plug or something. That's all right. Not intended in this case, although I do like to shamelessly promote myself. I could go get a Dark Avenue shirt or a beanie or something that makes you feel better. Yeah, well, there you go. But so we set that up, and I think before then, so it was a thing where I had reached out, I remember, and you were like, yeah, no, that sounds cool. And for whatever reason, like I was really just getting underway with like Dallas Prospect
Yeah.
and everything. And so I was kind of still trying to figure out exactly what its road was. Like I knew like it was going to be sports heavy and sports predominant, but I was like, nah, I want to work in other stuff too. Like I want to do like music and pop culture and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And those are still things I'm interested in. I've just kind of since kind of peeled them away to different little platforms and projects like film and stuff. I do like cheap pop now, which I would just consider it like an offshoot of Dallas Prospect anyway. But so I was trying to figure that out, and I remember thinking like, man, there's so much stuff I have to figure out here, like where to do the interview, because I didn't want to just run it out of like trying to run it like out of my house or something. I had no idea where any of you guys lived at the time, so I was trying to figure out like, oh, do I have to find somewhere in Dallas, and trying to jump through all these mental hoops that was just making it way more complicated than it needed to be.
Definitely.
And eventually, so like a while stretched without me like following back up, and I was just like, he probably thinks I'm like a schmuck or something now that like just completely dropped off the map after getting the initial green light. And then I went to, I think it was another Red Sun Rising show, and you guys were again opening. And I remember,
Trees.
yes, at Trees, yes. And I was there with my wife and my friend Jacob again, and he was there with his girlfriend. And I remember like mentioning like to Jacob or whatever, like I was like, oh crap, there's Dark Avenue. I never followed back up. And he said something to the effect of like, he was basically just like, all right, well, there they are, like go talk to them. I was like, I feel like a jerk or something for not following up sooner. And he said something just basically like, you know, suck it up and go do it or whatever. And I was like, all right, because I've gotten better at it, but I was for a long time and still to some degree like painfully shy.
Yeah.
Like if I don't know a person, I barely know how to like hold composure, let alone a conversation. And so I was like, all right, hold on. And I like downed my drink and I was like, all right, I'm gonna just go up there. And like even when like I walked up to like talk with you or whatever, you had like a couple people surrounding you. And so I just kind of like awkwardly like stood there, like trying not to be too awkward while all the time aware of how awkward I probably was. And finally, you know, when we actually like started talking or whatever, I like just let off like, hey, I reached out to you a while back, and you immediately like knew what I was talking about and everything. And so we just kind of got that back on track in that regard.
Yeah.
But I remember, you know, it all went well and everything. And when I was like heading back to meet up with Jacob and them, I was like feeling good about it. I had like a smile, and then like a minute later, like you guys came back from out there and we're like heading towards the backstage, and like you happened to like see where I was, and you gave like a head nod or something like that, and like I like returned the gesture, and Jacob was just like, he's like, oh, okay, so that's your boyfriend now. I was like, all right, guy, come on. But yeah, so we got it back on track after that, and I don't remember how long exactly after that it was, but we ended up doing it out of the Mexico restaurant in Allen, I believe it was. I can't remember if it was the Allen or Plano location. I think it was.
I want to say it was Plano.
It was Plano.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Plano location's no longer there, but that's where we ran it out of at the time, and that was good. It was just a different experience. We kind of did like an acoustic set and everything with it. We did definitely hit some technical issues just with my very limited equipment and everything that I was trying to run stuff off of. I think what happened was during the set, the band was coming through great and your vocals were coming and going, and I just think I had something wrong with the soundboard. So it was one of those things where it's like, well, once you're going, you kind of just have to roll with it.
Man, you know, being an artist and in all the years of experience that we've gone through so many technical difficulties. Like, it's nothing new. You know, just kind of like, just roll your sleeves and just the show must go on. You know, like they said, no, that's kind of cliche and. But it is true, you know, you just kind of keep going. I mean, if there's another microphone available, you know, you jump to that one and you know, with everything else, you know, just like what you were talking about, you know, we never felt like too important for anything or for anybody, you know, no matter what kind of success we had. And like I said, with Dark Avenue, we had very, very early success. I mean, immediately we started getting shows with, just massive bands, you know. I mean, we opened for Queensryche, you know, and we were the only openers. You know, there was no one else touring with them. I mean, we just, you know, at Gas Monkey Live, and we did a show with Jonathan Davis, and you know, like Red Sun Rising and Gemini Syndrome and Pop Evil, and I mean, just on and on. And there's I mean, when we did Rocklahoma, and like I said, it was just really great success very early. But one of the things that remained very important is to remain available and to like I said, just because we've been through that as individuals and with other projects, we just really wanted to focus on what really makes us happy, which is having a good connection with our fans, and which to me, and I think you've heard me say this before, is more like our friends, because eventually you end up seeing the same people once or twice, and it's good to I may not always remember the names, but I always remember the face, and just try to remain personable, because you never know where those friendships can take you. You may be in front of someone that it's just launching their career, and in 10 years they'll be able to help you out with something else, or someone that's already there and they're able to help you out. And that's how we met a lot of people that had helped us through to get to this point. And I mean right now there's not a lot happening, but prior to the pandemic, I mean, we had great momentum, and we had met great people, and all of that is because just remaining humble, and just counting your blessings, and just being available and being friendly. And we're not one of those bands that ever turns down an interview. I mean, from time to time a show, just because we can't. Right. But we love playing. We love jamming with each other. We're brothers. And when you and I met, when we did that show with you in Plano, it was just kind of like the beginning of a great friendship, and now it's kind of like a brotherhood now. It's like with everyone that we know. I mean, after the interview, we ended up talking a little bit, and it's like, oh man, like where are you going? It's like, oh, I'm driving to Denton. I was like, oh, well, I live in Denton. And we ended up being like...
It was like 2 streets away or something
neighbors.
Stupid. Yeah. And I was just jokingly telling you at the time, I was like, you don't know it yet, but I just became your best friend or something like that. And it's funny too, because like even when you said the area, like I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I know that's really close. But then like when I was driving home and realized how close it was, I was like, oh, wow, like literally like
you
2 minutes tops.
Walk.
Yeah, you could
to
walk
my
there.
apartment. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and then even when you guys moved out of that apartment, you were just in the next addition over, so like it was still technically the same like housing addition as far as the name, I believe.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty
so
much.
that was a crazy coincidence in that, but I think it definitely kind of helped us develop that friendship and everything. The fact that we were able to take at the time Billy was your girlfriend now. Yeah. But the now wives out, double dates and stuff like that. Nice trips to the Square and Pascal Bar, which I miss so dearly.
Oh, I don't even want to talk about it.
But no, it was good. It made it easy to kind of keep that open dialogue and everything. And then, sports as well was an easy avenue in that regard as well, with you being a Mavericks fan, a Cowboys fan too, but not your sole, I guess, team or interest there.
I have my conflicts with that.
Sure.
Because I am a 49ers fanatic. Just growing up watching Joe Montana. I mean, and I say growing up watching Joe Montana, I watched like 2 games, when he was still playing for the 49ers. Right. And then got traded to Kansas City. So, I mean, I grew up a 49er, but when I moved to Dallas, and I always liked the Rangers. The Texas Rangers had always been my team. I was a fan of Jose Canseco growing up because of my dad. Okay. And when he got traded to the Rangers, I was old enough to follow it, understand the rules, played a little bit in Mexico. And so the Rangers became my favorite team because Jose Canseco was traded to the Rangers. But I mean, my love just kind of grew, for them. I mean, with Palmeiro. And then when I moved here, it was just, it was meant to be. Yeah. And the Dallas Mavericks, I mean, it was honestly, once I moved here and it was available, I mean, of course, everyone in Mexico, if you ask them, they're Chicago Bull fans just because of Michael Jordan and how incredibly big he was. I mean, just in every market. And, and of course you had the rogue ones that Charles Barkley or Patrick Ewing. I mean, I remember having Ewing tennis shoes and just being like, oh, he's the coolest player. I had no idea who he was.
Gotcha.
But I had his shoes.
Right.
But it was more about marketing than anything else. But when I moved here, I fell in love with Darreck just like everybody else, with Nash, with Finley. And I mean, I've been here in Dallas or, in the Metroplex for 20 years. And I just learned to fall in love. And with the Cowboys, it's kind of like a love-hate relationship.
That's how it is with most Cowboy fans, I think, at this point, honestly. It's very strained, and yet it's like an abusive relationship you stay in. Not a good thing. Not a good thing.
Well, it's
they can win 2 games, and they're still going to sell out. Well,
every year you go in thinking, I can change this person.
Yeah.
And they don't change.
Yep.
And they keep disappointing you, and you keep going back.
Right.
Because, they're just so pretty to look at. And then you're like, well, no, same disappointment, year after year. So, but I mean, eventually, hopefully they'll realize that.
Mathematically, it has to happen at some point.
At some point, hey, you know what? It took the Chiefs 50 years, before they got back to the Super Bowl. So, I mean,
Hopefully
that was like 25 since the last time?
Yeah, the last time they got to the NFC Championship was like 96.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, and they've got like 3 or 4 playoff wins and all that time, but it's always like the wild card round. It's never divisional. Like they can't even get to the game. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, and you know what? It was such sweet redemption when the 49ers made it to the Super Bowl last year, and we were just so close. Mm-hmm. And, for years, I talked about the 49ers. I talked about being a fan, but every single one of my friends, it's a Cowboy fan. So it just kind of like, 49er. And, just kind of hide it. And, you watch the Cowboys games just because they're on all the time.
Sure.
And like I said, I'm from here now. I'm more Texan than I am,
right.
Mexican.
Yeah.
In a way, just because of the longevity that I've been here. But it was great it was a great feeling to tell all my friends like, oh yeah, the 49ers are in the Super Bowl again.
Sure. Yeah.
What happened to the Cowboys?
Yeah. And even if they tried to respond with like, oh yeah, how'd it go last time? And then how'd it go this time? Like even in both of those, it's like, all right, well, at least we got there. at least we did something.
Exactly. we were like 2 plays away from winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So
brutal.
Yeah, and and last year was just there was too many injuries, and so I'm just really not counting it. So. Yeah. But we'll see. As long as we don't know what's happening with the quarterback situation, just like here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of up in the air. You don't know what's going to happen. I already put in my 2 cents that maybe we can just go get Watson and go win the Super Bowl. But I don't think that's happening.
I don't think that fixes everything, and you'd have to trade so much to get him anyway. Plus, I don't know that it's a substantial enough upgrade over Dak anyway. But even still, there's so many things to try and make sense of with the Cowboys, and the problem is most of it doesn't make sense in the first place.
But you do know that I was talking about the 49ers getting Watson, right?
Oh, 49ers getting Watson in that case? Okay. Yeah, fine. Yeah, go do that. I don't care at that point. Yeah. So I heard we, and I thought I was being included.
Well, you are, of course, because
yes.
my success is your success.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
And
Fair enough.
I'm talking about my team.
Yes, of course. But so there's a lot there. But on the so to kind of pivot back to the band and everything like that, you mentioned you guys had a lot of momentum before the pandemic and everything kind of ground to a halt. Yeah. You guys were actually in talks with a label, right?
Yeah, we actually had signed a short contract with a label, and we had a couple songs produced, or not produced, but remastered and remixed by Toby Wright. Mm-hmm. I was going to say author, but no, the producer of the Nona tapes by Alice in Chains, and just many other artists like Seven Dust and
renowned person in his field.
Exactly. And we were working with a lot of big names. But I mean, just like everything and with everybody, there's limitations. And then, a few months after that, the pandemic hit. And we were, just like everyone else in the world, we were just shocked into our homes. Yeah. So, we really didn't know how to react or how to go, what to do. So, just everything kind of just stopped. Right. The world stopped. So, obviously, the band stopped. The creative process didn't, which is great. Right now, as we sit here, I can tell you we probably have a full album worth of material. Of course, we got to get into the studio and write lyrics, et cetera, and then I could tell you, okay, yeah, we have 11 songs. But for now, we have, several things in the works. But going back, we did have several conversations with labels, with producers, with agents, and we had a lot of things in the works, and of course, in this industry, unfortunately, money talks. Once you get to a certain level, and it's not like it used to be before. Where producers and record labels, were going out looking for talent and signing talent, and just money over fist, and trying to get them to sign with their label. Now it's just different. The technology has completely changed the playing field, which in many ways is great because you can reach a bigger audience, being smaller, and which it's helped us in many ways. But in order to start working at the level that we are, in order to start working with people of the caliber that we were working, you need a budget, because you need management, you need transportation, et cetera, et cetera. And that stalled things, a little bit. Once you, and this is funny, because there's seasons for everything. Once you start getting into the holidays, usually, it slows down a little bit for, like live shows, and et cetera, et cetera. I found out, personally, that I had developed nodules on my vocal cords, which I've had back in, 1998. When I was singing with band in Mexico, and I was singing every night, so just like with everything, whether you're an athlete or, a sports writer, eventually you start developing, things, like carpal tunnel, if you're always on your computer typing, and as an athlete, you could pull a muscle or ACL, you name it.
Yeah, just general wear and tear.
Exactly. And as a vocalist, and those things are almost inevitable. Especially for someone that's been singing for as long as in the type of genre that I do. I do try to be really careful. I follow all my my breathing, and all my technique and stuff. But unfortunately, it happens. Of course, back in '98, I was still a teenager, and it was relatively easy to get back in shape, and surgery wasn't even something that I was considering back then, or was even an option. Just kind of like rehabbing it and resting my voice, and it went away, and I bought myself another 20 years almost.
So for those who might not know, what does the impact nodules have on like your voice and everything? Like we said, wear and tear, so that kind of paints a picture. But like, how does it impact it? I guess.
Well, I mean, I don't know that there is. I don't know how it affects other people the way that it affect me. Was my voice just wasn't as responsive. It just wasn't as strong. Definitely there was a lot of discomfort, especially after shows. You experience sometimes, losing your voice or, voice cracking just because your vocal cords, you're putting a lot of tension on your vocal cords and they don't open as wide as you are used to. And you don't project as much because there's not as much air going out. And of course, it all depends on the size of the nodule. But I mean, it's just a little callus on the vocal cord. And, when you're thinking of your vocal cord, it's like, as thin as one of your hairs.
Okay.
And when you're thinking of a nodule, I mean, it could be, as big as a grain of rice. So, if you put that, on a piece of hair, it's giant.
Right.
Thankfully mine, are not as severe, but still severe enough to sideline me for about a month or two of just me wanting to see, wanting to rehab and just working through it and just seeing like, okay, well, maybe, I don't need to have surgery. I did consider it. It's still something that I'm thinking about. And in all honesty, I don't know how much more time it will allow me to do this. And it's not going to be life changing. It's not going to change, my voice or my speaking voice or anything like that. But it will definitely change my singing voice in a way, and of course, you can, like any muscle, you can make it stronger, you can exercise it, but it definitely threw a wrench in my plans, with the band. And then when the pandemic hit, it was kind of like, okay, well, I mean, this is the time that I need to
rest it, and to consider things. Yeah,
exactly.
So resting has been beneficial for your voice in terms of kind of regaining its strength and ability to project and everything.
It has in a way, but now it's getting back in the groove of things that. But just like with everything else, just like when we went into,
so you got to build it back up. Yeah,
exactly. When we went into the pandemic, a lot of us stopped working out, going to the gym, and and eating whatever. So you develop bad habits, and I wasn't excluded. I sure did develop some bad habits. I was definitely doing some things that didn't help. My progression. Sure. They didn't make it worse, but they just didn't help my progression. And, in the last couple of months, it's just been a matter of, rehabbing, getting the strength back. And a couple of weeks ago, we got together with a band, and I was able to work my vocals. And, slowly I'm rebuilding. So, for me, the pandemic was just kind of like that time to focus on myself and just get those things back in line.
Kind of an ideal time to you don't want to have to deal with that, but it's an ideal timing just in the sense that there's no live shows anyway, so you're not having to miss what otherwise would be like exposure and revenue and all that the band could make and kind of help you guys progress. Yeah, exactly.
So which was great for me mentally, because I didn't have to feel like I was holding anything back. And now, even now, as we have returned to some sort of normalcy, we are still not taking any shows. We're slowly getting back, together. We are focusing on the creative process. We're focusing on writing and, and maybe, in a few months, when we feel it's a little more prudent to go out and start playing shows, we can, and we'll see where it goes. And hopefully we'll have some new material. We haven't even been able to promote reality. So we're thinking about a new album. So we may be promoting 2 albums. So who knows? But it's exciting. I'm glad that I am where I'm at right now, and I just want to see where how it progresses and where it goes.
Okay.
So,
out of curiosity, if you did ultimately, whenever it is, if you did decide to do the surgery, you mentioned like there's no telling how long that might buy. Is it something where like nodules could just redevelop and it might be a few years or it might be 10 years? Like, is it, I guess I'm curious on that. Like if it's something that like, it's not even like, okay, you fixed it and it's done.
Yeah.
Cause you mentioned the first time in 98 that you didn't do the surgery then. So I'm wondering like if it's the same nodules that have just worsened or if it's like surgery would remove them, but you could always just develop new ones anyway.
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
Like I said, it's just it's just a callus. It's like golfers, Yeah. I mean, when it's not season and they're not playing a lot, their hands are, smooth, and there's no calluses. But when you're playing and you're out there, you develop those calluses. So it's very similar to that, and just to kind of put it in layman's terms, and it's not a fix all, unfortunately. I've had friends that have come out and their voice didn't change, and I've had other friends that just it was never the same. And while they're still able to perform, but it just they
changes the range and pitch and things like that. Yeah,
it does. And I mean, a lot of it too is it's age. I mean, we're talking about guys that are like in their 50s, and
okay,
and of course your voice changes as you get older, and but I mean, the fact that they're still doing it, it's very encouraging. If I were to do the surgery, I mean, every doctor that I've seen and talked to, has mentioned, or in every article that I read, I mean, just it's at everybody's pace. It could be 1 or 2 months, and you get back into you do a little rehab, and and you could be back on the road, within 6 months. Some people have had the surgery and it's been a year, and so I don't know what it would be for me. And I don't know that, honestly, it's one of those things that I try to avoid thinking about.
Sure.
Until I'm there, and I figure out like, okay, you know what, I should probably have the surgery because I just keep damaging my vocal cords, and I'm cutting my career short. And if I have the surgery, it's going to be another year. Could it be another year? Could it be 6 months? I don't know. And definitely, if I were to do that, I would want to take every precaution necessary to get back to some sort of normal, or or the same level that I've been singing, and that would be my biggest fear, I guess.
Yeah.
To not the unknown of how long
right.
it could potentially take me. So, like I said, right now I feel good. I've been trying to push myself from time to time, and it's been good. I mean, after I've been talking for a while, I don't feel like I'm gonna lose my voice within the next 10 or 15 minutes. The pain is definitely not severe. I'm able to talk for longer periods of time. I'm able to sing for longer periods of time. So I see that as a positive. It was very much kind of like when I had it the first time, and just slowly regained my strength. And I think a lot of that it's going to have to do with my conditioning, which I'm slowly getting back to it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. So I guess this kind of forced you to think in terms of like after your career, like post singing career in any respect, like just in terms of like what your kind of ambitions and whatnot are.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, singing, it's been in my life, my entire life. There's never been a time that I didn't sing. That I wasn't part of something, creative or musical. So, yeah, it's kind of forced me to think about that, and it's scary, but I'm not one of those people that like to stay still. I mean, during the pandemic, I mean, I studied to get my real estate license, and I got it, and it's always that desire of learning something new, trying to find a new trade, and and after I'm done with singing, maybe I'll focus on writing or producing, and I don't know. I mean, there's just many things that I can do. I never limit myself to what I can or cannot do. So,
right.
I think that's just so much fun. To kind of to figure out like, okay, so now I don't have this. Like, what's next?
Right.
And and as long as I have energy and will, I'm gonna keep figuring out what's next. So
fair enough.
Staying active.
Yeah, that's something that for me, I've tried to really kind of push my boundaries a little bit. Like I said before, like how I've always been very kind of introverted and shy and things like that. And like I've been, I think, for a lot of my life, really like resistant to kind of growth. Like there were things that I liked and that I tried to pursue in different ways.
Yeah.
But I feel like at times that I was kind of what was in my own way, in terms of like being able to grow and to like build good habits and everything. And so that's something that just within the last few months, like I've really been trying to better assess and kind of get a grip on, because once I realized, like I viewed it before as like, well, school's difficult right now. Like I'm going back and getting the degree while having an 8-month-old daughter. I'm working a full-time schedule, going to school full-time. And then I'm doing everything with like Dallas Prospect. Like my schedule is just packed at all times. And I was always like, well, my schedule's the problem. It's just everything's on it. Like it's stuff I have to do, like, but that's the problem. And what I kind of came to realize with it was like, well, I mean, like those are the obstacles. Yeah. But like you can navigate obstacles. The problem is with the mindset in which you're approaching it.
Absolutely.
And so I kind of realized like, no, it's me. That's my own problem. Like it's how I'm blocking my own path or progression, or how even if I do have like an interested like ambition towards trying something, I'm what's kind of blocking my own path. And it's something where it's like, oh, this would be really cool if I could do something like this. But then you have that little negative voice in the back of your mind like, yeah, that would be great if you didn't suck. Like you'd have something like that. Like, oh yeah, if you could realistically do that, or like, oh, that's so improbable. It's not even worth bothering. You'd just be wasting your time. Like you just have all this like negative stuff. And I kind of had to say like, all right, well, instead of giving this negative voice thought, whatever, like the kind of megaphone and everything to kind of like direct my life from the back seat, like how about we instead give that more towards positive stuff? So it's like by not listening to every passing like thought or emotion that wanted to be negative about something, it's like, well, you silence those and now all you hear is the positive stuff. And like
absolutely,
just in doing that, I feel like just in the matter of the last 3-4 months has been like, I mean, for lack of a better term, like transformative for me in terms of like just actually developing like real self-confidence.
Correct.
Because like I've been doing Dallas Prospect and stuff for 3 years, but I could still go on a live stream and like in the minutes leading up to it, I'm anxious, like to the point of like, I'm like, I just got to start. I'm going to like go sprinting out of the gate. And then like after like 5 minutes or so, I'll settle in and I'll start to actually be normal. Yeah. But like I would have anxiety about it. Yeah. And I was like, I've been doing this for 3 years. A lot of these people that are watching this, like they're here because they like what I do, obviously. So it's like, why am I putting this weird pressure and strain on myself when there's absolutely no reason to? Just like I'm not anxious or anything talking with you now, especially as long as we've known each other and everything. Correct. It's like, now obviously it's different. It's more personal and talking face to face like this versus people that watch the channel and like, I know your username and you talk in the chat, but it's different. I get that, but it's like, well, why am I anxious about that? Yeah. So just doing all this stuff has kind of worked. And what I like about it is not just has it helped me build self-confidence and everything, but it's actually like allowed me to say like, well, I picked up this thing and it was kind of a good constructive habit for me to build. Like, absolutely. And that just made me more interested. I'm like, well, this thing, like something I picked up that I never thought I would pick up is like daily meditation. And like, I couldn't have told you anything about it like 4 months ago. I would have assumed it was the long hair, hippie, cross leg, and just palms of the sky. Like,
That's normally when you talk about meditation. That's what I picture in my head.
Yep, and that's just like the stigma about it. I realized, that cabin trip I took 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We just took it again. But that trip I took 2 years ago, and I talked about how like great that was for clearing my mind and everything like that, like how transformative that kind of felt. The problem is, like I sat outside that first night we were there for like an hour in just absolute perfect silence. If my mind wandered, I just kind of brought it back to like, no, just chill for a moment. And eventually something kind of felt like it clicked. And then it was like I had clarity, and I could actually think and plan and decide like what I wanted to do moving forward, how I wanted to go about it. And it just felt like it was really, really productive.
You found your formula.
Exactly. And then I came back from that trip, and within a matter of days, I started to feel like shit again. And within a couple of weeks, I felt like I was right back where I was before I went on the trip. My mistake I made at the time was I put the significance of it, the kind of power of it, in the location. I was like, well, I have to be out in the middle of nowhere. I have to have this absolute peace and tranquility.
Yeah.
And then maybe I can key back into that. I didn't think it was something that I could just do. So then the following year, we went on another trip, a different remote cabin, and there was other stuff going on with that as well. Not the least of which was altitude sickness and drunkenness. But see,
it doesn't help.
I hadn't experienced that, and I didn't know that in tandem, 1.5 scotches hit me like 6. And so I was sick as a dog for 2 days of a 4-day trip.
Yeah.
And so that kind of got in the way a little bit as well. But yeah, I wasn't able to key back into that. And then I just felt even worse about it, because then I was like, oh my God, what if that was like a one-time fleeting thing?
Yeah.
So I was so anxious about it. We went back to not the original cabin, but the original like area.
The site.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that first night I was like, okay, I'm here. It took me 2 years, but I'm here. Let's figure this out. And it took a while. Like I couldn't even over an hour in, I couldn't just shift back into it. And I was like, damn it, what am I doing wrong? And I kind of like looked into it, and I basically realized as I was like trying to figure out, like as I'm like almost like describing around, like, oh, how do you like, it's like Google, like, how do I do this?
Yeah.
And it's like, did you mean meditation? Like, no, I'm not meditating. Like, what are you talking about? And then like, it was actually, I like read like how that all goes about and like what goes into it. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I was meditating. I just didn't realize that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so like, once I thought about it like that and I started actually doing it, I was like, dude, I can do this in like 10 or 15 minutes in the morning. And it just helps you be like more calm and mindful. So like, it's weird. Like I would not have thought this would be such a drastic change in like my general, not personality, but demeanor, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, it really has been. Like I have more patience for dealing with stuff. Like the other day, for instance, Harper was my daughter, really having just a crappy morning, screaming, upset. I'm like trying to like get her dressed and everything, help her get her pants on. She like screams point blank in my ear, ears ringing.
Delightful.
Yeah, ears ringing. She's smacking me in the face, pokes me in the eye, and I'm just like, okay. And then like a minute later, I finally get to sit down with my coffee, and JJ runs by, bumps me, spill hot coffee all over myself. And I'm like, that should be, collectively, that should be enough that I'm just like, F my day. The whole day is like, I'm pissed.
Oh, it's run.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like, I just was like, okay, change shirts. And I just went along with my day. Like, and I thought about it like literally an hour later, like, I didn't even really get upset. I just was like, all right, well, this happened.
Absolutely.
Just move with it.
Yeah, I guess it's just part of not staying in the moment, not being stuck, and just being active and moving forward. And
yeah.
So yeah, it's great. It's great to hear that.
So like, yeah, that's the main thing. Like when I picked that up, that kind of like opened the door to other different good habits and everything that I wanted to build, because I was like, man, if I can do this and it's like 15 minutes a day, but like it's such a noticeable change in terms of my demeanor and everything.
Absolutely.
Like, what are some other good little habits I could pick up? And now I've been like compounding these, adding to them. So like another thing I did, and this was kind of taking something I did in both of the successful, I would say, as far as clarity is concerned, cabin trips. I would, after I go back inside from just sitting out there and kind of like clearing my head and everything, I would journal a little bit. Like I would just kind of like, and it could be whatever. Like it would be just like kind of what was on my mind when I was doing it, like what my thoughts were moving forward. It's just something along those lines. But I would do that, and I don't know when this part started happening, but at some point I just started losing weight without realizing it. And I noticed it when I was probably like just under 20 pounds down. Yeah. And so I was like, oh shit, maybe I should actually try and help it as well. You know, like you're like, well, if I'm doing this without even knowing what I'm doing, what happens when I actually try? And so like I started picking up, I started getting back into like that dynamic resistance yoga stuff, that like DDPY stuff I told you about previously. And so now like every morning, like when Sean and Harper, they're out the door by 8:00, I'll go ahead and do a little bit of DDPY, just something light, just to kind of, you know, wake up the body a little bit. It's probably like 350 calories that you're burning in just this like 15-20 minute
Get
workout.
The blood flow.
Yep. Yeah. I'll go do that. Then I'll go meditate for like 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'll go and I'll journal. The whole thing's 45 minutes, and like that's become like more or less my holy trinity of like of my morning. Correct. And like it's been really good. Like it's helped me. I feel like I'm down, I think like 26 or 27 pounds now. Wow. And this is like, you know, as far as me actually tracking it, like probably 6 weeks or something.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so it's like, that's good. My mental clarity, I feel like, is the best it's ever been in my life. Like my general mental like stability and state of mind, like I feel more level-headed, and like without listening to and kind of giving that power to these like negative thoughts and emotions, just like I notice when they're there, and I basically just like, oh, okay, I'm aware of you, but I'm going to look over here now. Yeah. It's like without that thing like beating the positive emotions and thoughts over the head, I just hear those now. Definitely. And so like confidence is up. Like I feel like more ambitious as far as what I'm wanting to do and everything. And it's just like, I feel like it sounds dramatic to say or whatever, but like it feels like I'm kind of unlocking that like potential of what I always had the opportunity to be, but just never could because I was blocking my own path. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, and first of all, I mean, congratulations. And I know you and I had these conversations before, especially when it comes about, you know, your mental health and, you know, because it's, in all honesty, I mean, if you're not right, you know, if you don't feel right mentally, you know, it can throw a huge wrench on your plans and what you do. I mean, just like, you know, the daily things that you do. And, you know, I mean, just unlocking that, you know, is great when you have it and when you see it. You know, I was very blessed, you know, at a very young age, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. You know, of course, you know, I've always had anxiety, you know, before shows, you know, when we first started. I mean, I definitely felt that. Now I'm, you know, I mean, obviously doing it this long, I'm at a point where it's not anxiety, it's more just the anticipation of, you know, I want to get there. Let's get to that point where I'm on stage and I'm ready to go. But I mean, in life, I've always had that, you know, and those self-doubts never go away, but they're there for a reason, you know, they're there so you can kind of break through, you know, break through those things. And definitely daily habits are incredibly important, you know, and just pushing yourself to do those things that make you uncomfortable. Yeah. You know, as good as I think I am at talking to people and connecting, I mean, the first time, you know, when I got my real estate license and, you know, getting to meet new people, it was really easy. And talking to people on the phone, suddenly I was like, wow, I am actually like nervous and anxious, but you know, the more you do it, it just becomes a habit, and good habits breed new big changes, good habits.
Oh yeah.
and big changes. I mean, just like you were saying, suddenly you started losing weight without even knowing. That was a big change just because of the habits that you took.
Yeah.
And when you realized that, you were like, okay, well, what else can I do?
Yeah.
And that's just, it's great, to hear that, it's hopefully, some people take notes on that and be like, okay, I mean, if Darreck can do it, because I mean, I remember having, some conversations where, you just couldn't get out of your own mind, and knowing people that have gone through that and myself as well, is, there is little things that you can do. Like I said, it never goes away. It's always there, but it's just kind of like how you manage to push those things aside and focus on the good things and the good things that you're doing. And it's great. And it just breeds, success, breeds good habits. And even when you don't have success, even when you don't reach the goals that you were looking for, it just kind of propels you and pushes you and gives you peace of mind of saying like, you know what, well, let's try it a different way.
Right.
Maybe a different approach, or, is this as good as it's going to get? I don't know, maybe, but you start becoming satisfied with the work that you do because it's good work. Right. And you realize like, okay, I put this much work into it, I feel good. And then suddenly, you find yourself with a newfound confidence that you've never had, and it just kind of propels you every single day, to wake up. I have two sisters in Mexico, and we always have these really deep conversations about, just daily things that we can do to make our day, better. And one of the things that I do.
Hold on, I'm gonna hit that again.
Sure.
The message just popped up, so it had to have just cut. And I was actually thinking, like, I bet you it's been like right about 20 minutes.
It has.
Yeah. Or 30 minutes, I guess, but. How are you on time?
I'm good.
Okay.
It's about to be 1 o'clock. It's 15 minutes away.
Okay.
I'm not good. I'm
good. No worries. It's whatever you want to do. We don't have to go too terribly much longer or whatever, but.
I got about 15, 20 minutes.
Okay, cool. So you were talking with your sisters about stuff you could do, and
yeah. And I mean, of course, this is gonna sound so easy, and I make sure to emphasize on that every time I tell them. When I wake up in the morning, my alarm goes off. So there's some days I'm not gonna lie, I snooze, but most days I don't. And I wake up and I just tell myself, today's going to be a great day. And I wake up and I put a smile on my face. And I know it sounds silly, but it goes a long way in how your day moves forward. Yeah. And I come out and I have a good demeanor. I bring the dogs out. I'm being silly with them. I have my cup of coffee. And I don't let the grogginess and that feeling of like, oh, I want to go to bed. I want to go back to sleep. Overcome me. Yeah. And, and it's just something that I've done for years now. And every single morning I wake up and I do the exact same thing. And, people say, well, you're just a morning person. But I wasn't. Right. I used to be a night owl. I used to be up until 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning and able to sleep until midday the next day. And, and wake up and just feel, like terrible for, like 2 or 3 hours and not do anything and just kind of let my day, go by. And then really around 3 or 4 o'clock, that's when I got going. And, and just one day I just decided, I was like, well, just my day is gone. Yeah. Like I'm not doing anything and I'm gaining weight and I'm smoking more and I'm doing this and I'm drinking more. And one day I just decided I didn't want to do that anymore. So I quit smoking. I definitely didn't quit drinking, but I didn't drink every night. Yeah. Which was great. Right. And I started, taking care of my body and going to sleep and taking care of my mental health and making better decisions. And suddenly I found, the thing that propelled me.
Right.
And for me, it was just a very small change, which was just, like I said, being positive and staying positive and just keeping my energy up from the moment I opened my eyes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it had anything to do with, like I said, just, for some people it's faith, for some people it's just, the want to do something different, to change. And, for me it was just, I wanted to be better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so. I think that's something for me. Like I always had this like feeling of like I want to do better. I know what I need to be doing, but like I struggle to actually do it. Like, or I could do it for a while, but I could never hold to it. And so that's when I kind of realized like I need to find like something that's like a fundamental change. And I think I was aware of it, and that's why I clung to like the idea of like the cabin trip. But once I realized I didn't have to kind of put the significance of that in being out there, like don't get me wrong, it's easier if you're out there and it's wonderful and peaceful. I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like once I realized like so what I'm doing was that I can do that anywhere, and I can bring that back with me. And then like the longer you do it, it's kind of like anything. It's, we talked earlier about like muscles and kind of building that up, whether it's your focus and concentration during it, like, my mind is wandering. Let me pull it back to kind of like a home base, if you will. And like just focus on my breathing or just do this. Like it kind of like opened things up where once you stack that up for a couple of weeks, you start to notice this major change. And then like you start to introduce those better habits. Like I was talking about, like those three I mentioned are like, that's like my everyday thing. Like even if I'm not going to do like a hard workout that day, the kind of dynamic resistance yoga thing I do, it's like a 15-minute thing that really just kind of gets your blood pumping. So I do that every day. And then 2 or 3 times a week, I'll do a harder one as well, like later in the morning or the afternoon or something. And it's really, really been good for me in that regard. But the other habits and stuff I've kind of played around with. Some of them I have like written down, and I like have it on like my whiteboard. I'll have like the yoga, the meditation, the journal, but then I'll also have ones like reading, writing, creating, just something like that. And I try to, the main 3 I try to do every day, but the other ones I try to keep up with them, but I knew if I kept making such a stringent thing where I was like, I have to do all these every day, and now I've got like 10 items on the list. Well, that gets to the point where it's not practical. You're going to start missing them, then you're going to get mad at yourself for missing them. And you could have like I think the kind of classic one there is like the don't break the chain thing, which was like Jerry Seinfeld talking about writing jokes. You wrote jokes that day, you put an X on the calendar, and you don't break the chain. Like you just keep it going. That feels stringent, and like you don't allow any room. I mean, if it's one thing, first of all, that's different than if you're doing 10. But it's kind of stringent. Like you don't allow for any interruptions of life or anything like that, or like, oh, well, I'm dealing with a project for school, and I have stuff I'm doing with work and my daughter and all that. So sometimes things get messy, and so I kind of implemented a 2-day rule, and that's basically like I'm going to try to do all these every day, and if I don't, then instead of putting a check, I'm going to put an X, and then I know I need to prioritize that the next day. Never try to let more than 2 days pass without doing these things. And so like on a great day, I'll hit all of those. Those will all be checks. But there's going to be days like yesterday, I didn't have time to write or do anything, what I would say is creative, which could be like, oh, I put out content for a channel. Or like today, I would count this, it's content creation. I would count this as a creative thing.
Absolutely.
If I'm writing like a short story or part of my novel or something, hey, look, it checks both at the same time. It's perfect. Like it just kind of works like that. But like yesterday, I didn't write or create. So those were X's. And one of those I'm already dealing with here today, addressing. And it just makes it easy where it gives you leeway and you still feel really good about the progress you're making, because you're like, dude, at the very least, I'm doing all of these things 4 out of 7 days. Absolutely.
And visual incentives are huge, especially for someone that's a visual learner, someone that's a doer, put in a check mark on a piece of paper. It's huge, better than a mental mark, because you can forget those easily once you move on to the next thing. And but I mean, just like you said, it's just creating those good habits and forcing yourself to do those things. And if you're missing those things,
being gentle with yourself, not beating yourself up for missing it.
Absolutely. I think in many ways, and I say we, speaking of myself, we are our worst enemy.
Yeah.
And the limitations that we put ourselves, so that's why I was talking, whenever my singing career's done, I don't know when that is, it could be 20 years. I could be an old man and just still singing and still be happy,
right?
But it just that's the exciting part about life. It's just like to figuring out what next and what you can do, and we set our own limitations on things. I mean, never in a million years I could have told you, that I'd be where I'm at now.
Right.
Especially as a little boy in Mexico.
Right.
I had my aspirations were very small. Mm-hmm. My dreams weren't very big, and when I started. When I started singing and doors opened, when I started traveling and meeting people and just seeing the world, I was kind of like, wow, this is much bigger than my little box that I had. Yeah. And, but I was still happy, and because that was my reality. You don't know what you don't know. Right. And, and sometimes we give ourselves giant dreams, like, oh my God, I want to travel the world and I want to do this and I want to do that. And when 1 year goes by and you haven't done any of those things, kind of like defeat. Yeah. And you forget, where you are, it's like when you found that peace in the cabin, and then you found that here, I'm sure it was a huge, realization of, oh, wow, I don't need a place. Yeah. I don't need that place to find my mental. Right.
And that was place. Huge. Like when I was able to, once I was able to continue that kind of progressive forward momentum as far as not descending back into that negative mindset and all that, as days kind of rolled by and I was like, not only do I not feel like I'm getting worse, I feel like I'm just getting better. Yeah. I feel like I'm finding an enhanced kind of clarity. That was very big for me. So it's definitely an ongoing process, but the good thing is I feel like I actually have kind of control of it for the first time. Instead of just being reactive to stuff, I feel like I'm able to kind of be more ambitious and be more, planning and methodical in what I'm doing. So,
And one of the biggest things that you said, and I've taken that to heart through the years, is just being gentle with yourself, and being kind to yourself and learning how to love yourself. It's huge, and I think many people struggle with that, loving yourself. And it doesn't necessarily mean, you look at yourself in the mirror and you pamper yourself and you're like, oh, you're cute and you're beautiful. But no, just, giving yourself a break about the mistakes and the hurdles that you have to go through life. And just kind of pat yourself on the back and tell yourself it's going to be okay. And, keep pushing forward. And it's great, and I'm, like I said, I'm excited to see what the prospect and what Kirby Creative has for the future, and I'm excited for, all the things that I have going on in my life. And like I said, it's just, part of life is the excitement for me, in life is just the unknown, what's next. And, I don't need to be in the beach to feel like I'm on vacation. Right. I find, you got to find those little moments. You got to find your little beach here, right. In your own backyard, in your own mind. And that goes a long way, and it's a daily thing, it's a daily thing. And, pat yourself in the back and just move forward, put a smile on your face.
Pretty much. It's huge. Yeah, makes all the difference. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to sit down and do this podcast with me. I know we've been talking about doing it for a little while. I've been very busy trying to get things in order, but I'm glad to get some of these going.
And I'm sure I haven't made it easy for you too. Trying to nail down the time. So I appreciate it.
No worries at all. We can always make adjustments and all that, and we'll have to do it again in the future.
Yeah. I'm down. love this. I love talking.
Yeah, go
So,
figure.
yeah.
But yeah, if you guys haven't already, check out Mario's band, Dark Avenue, and check out their new album, Reality. As new stuff comes out, I'll be sure to plug that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.